Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Debbie Brunaforte, Vice President at Campers NRV. They are the largest family-operated RV dealership group in the nation, founded in 1966 after its owners experienced a negative encounter at a local dealership. Today, they specialize in no-pressure RV sales, service, and parts, focused on treating every customer like family. Now, under their leadership, Campers NRV has grown significantly and is recognized for its trusted approach and commitment to helping people find the right vehicle for their adventures. Debbie has played a pivotal role in overseeing operations in Arizona since June 2022, drawing on her background from Arizona State University to guide teams and streamline processes. Her achievements include helping the company maintain its strong family values while driving innovation in the recreational vehicle industry. Through her leadership, Campers NRV continues to build on its culture of integrity and teamwork, ensuring its customers have the best experience possible. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Adback Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at adbackbenefitsagency.com. Now back to our guest today. Vice President of Campers NRV, Debbie Brunaforte. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
My pleasure. Glad to talk with you today, Anthony.
So, Debbie, tell us, how did you first get into the RV industry? What drew you in?
Well, it's a family business. Long before I became part of Campers, and my family was in the RV industry. So I grew up in the business. I'm one of 7 children, and my parents believed in free child labor. So my brothers and sisters and I spent our weekends and so forth at the dealership doing what kids can do: pull weeds, pick up litter, clean trailers, clean RVs. And that was my journey, my brothers and sisters. And interestingly enough, the RV industry has so many family-operated small individual dealerships. So my story is not unique in this industry.
And so as you grew older, you just sort of naturally kind of became a bigger and bigger part of it, and then eventually took over ownership. Is that kind of how the path went?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I became, even though I have an older brother that was involved in the business and my father that was involved in the business, I became the president of the company shortly before I was 30, and continued to work with my brother and my father and other family members. But I just had more of a passion for the industry and more of a drive for it than my older brother did. My brother is, still one of my best friends to this day. And he was very, very good at what he did. He just didn't love it as much as I did.
And so at some point he stepped out and this became what you did.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you became president before the age of 30. And what was the business like when you took it over? And then tell us what the growth curve kind of looked like after that.
Well, we were fortunate to have quite a bit of growth. We were just a very small dealership. We grew to multiple locations. We became the largest RV dealer in the state of Arizona on the towable side, not the largest in motorized. In the RV space, there's the motorized side, which represents about 10% of the industry, and then the towable side, all the different fifth wheels, travel trailers, toy haulers, pop-up trailers. They represent about 90% of the industry. So we did open up multiple locations. We closed some and built new ones, and became the largest towable dealer in the state. So we were fortunate to have that level of success. And then in 2022 is when we sold the company to Campers Inn. And the owners of that company are good friends of mine. I've known, we've been in a business mastermind group for about 20 years. And so they knew me very well. I knew them very well. And it's worked out very good since then.
So prior to selling the business, you were growing, you're opening new locations. Sometimes you close them, reopen them someplace else. What is it that you think you were doing well that allowed for that kind of growth?
Well, you have to have a level of success in your own dealership before you can consider opening other locations, at least in my opinion. We always wanted to go where our customers want to go, Anthony. And in my mind, the customer's the boss. They've always been the boss. And it's our job to provide that to them. One of our core values, our name is Little Dealer, Little Prices, was the name of the business. And we still, in Arizona, we still operate under that name, even though we're owned by Campers NRV. And in the view of the customer as the boss, our goal was always to give them the most value for the money. And those are the products that we would seek out. Being in business as long as we have and during the volume of business that we do, we're fortunate enough throughout the years to be able to get pretty much whatever product or brand that we wanted, and we could represent those. And the goal in doing that is, what is the best one for our customer? What RVs provide the most quality at the best price? And I think that that's worked. And then we always discounted everything. We never sold anything at MSRP. We always had a very low price. Our goal was to be the lowest price, hence the name Little Dealer, Little Prices. It was my father's philosophy when he started out. He would use the saying, I'd rather make, a quick nickel than a slow quarter. and that just grew. It grew momentum. Even during COVID, interestingly enough, because there was a severe shortage of RVs, the demand was far greater than what the supply was. And I'm the only dealer in the country, to my knowledge, that did not raise prices.
Wow.
A lot of dealers were at straight MSRP. Some dealers were over MSRP. And we never changed our prices. We still gave the same discount that we always gave. We had the same pricing model. We struggled with that a little bit. Probably cost us a lot of money, but it just felt like the right thing to do.
And that is surprising, right? Because I know both in the RV space as well as with automobiles, right? The demand during COVID was a lot higher than what the supply could meet. And so prices just went up and through the roof. And so to hear that you maintained your already low prices through a period where everybody would have expected that you would increase prices is surprising.
Yeah, that's exactly true. The margins naturally went up a little bit because in a normal business cycle, you might have some aged inventory that you mark down even further. We didn't have any of that type of thing. But yes, we kept the exact same discounts as what we had for 10 or 20 years before COVID and after COVID.
Do you feel like that may have in any way hurt you as you were coming out of COVID and things slowed down? Like your competitors, maybe they were, charging higher rates that, they had a little bit of extra cushion?
Well, it's one of those things that I'll never know.
Yeah.
Could we charge more money? Absolutely, we could have. I mean, there's no question about that. We could have charged more money. We probably would have sold the same number of RVs. Do you have residual value with your reputation in the community? Hopefully, when people would come and trade in on something else, if they bought it from us, they weren't completely buried as if they had bought it from somebody else. That helped us a little bit. So it's one of those things that we'll never know if it was better for the company or worse for the company.
But for you, it just felt like the right thing to do. Like at your core, like how would I want to be treated? This is how I would want to be treated. Like keep the prices the same, our margins stay the same, or improve a little bit. Because like you said, you don't have that aged inventory, but you were more concerned about doing the right thing and what your reputation was in the community.
Right. Yeah. The margins, like I said, naturally went up a little bit because you didn't have all those other business constraints. But the pricing that we priced our RVs at remained exactly the same. And it didn't go through my mind often as if, am I doing the right thing? Should we raise the prices? But we never did, and things worked out well. So it's not a decision that I regret. I'm glad we did that.
So tell me what went into the decision to sell to your friends at Campers NRV, folks that you had met in the mastermind.
Yeah, the biggest part of it, it may not be a great reason, but the biggest part of it is because I just didn't have a succession plan. I have 3 sons. They all graduated college and were in careers that were in alignment with their degrees. They were very happy, all three of them, with what they were doing. So I just didn't feel like I had a succession plan. And therefore, I thought at some point in time, I need to sell the business. I don't need to get out of the industry. I love the industry. I love what I do. I intended to still be in the industry. But I thought at some point in time, I needed to sell the business. The time was right to sell the business, number one. Number two, my very close friend, who is the owner of Campers NRV, he had 35 locations, but they're all on the East Coast. He wanted to expand out west, not on the East Coast, but in the eastern half of the U.S. He wanted to expand out west, but he just didn't feel like he could do it efficiently from the other side of the country. He needed a platform store. He needed a store from which to grow in the West. And that's why he'd been talking to me, for some time. This wasn't new. We'd had a few conversations. And the convergence of all those things coming at the same time is why I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger. And as you know, I stayed on with them without any employment contract. There has been quite a bit of consolidation in the RV space, but normally either the owner is out entirely or they have an employment contract where they have to stay on for a couple of years. There's non-compete agreements. You can't either open up another store and compete against, or you can't go to work for another competitor. I didn't have any of that. None of that was even a topic of conversation because, I just know them so well. They know me. It was never something that we've been talk about.
Didn't even come up. It wasn't like, hey, should we think about this? It wasn't even part of the dialogue.
No, wasn't even part of the dialogue. I would never go and compete against them. They know that. So it was not even part of the dialogue.
So what is your role now in part of the larger group? I'm assuming you're still running kind of the Arizona operations. Are you involved in a higher level in what's going on out east as well?
Well, we view ourselves as one company with 37 locations. So yes, we communicate almost daily. We have lots of meetings to communicate with one another for different processes and so forth. Basically, though, I'm doing the same thing that I always did. Because of COVID, we haven't expanded out west as we had intended to. We still will. It's just that, I shouldn't say COVID, post-COVID. So the RV industry has been very slow the last couple of years. We feel that 2025 will be a year where it picks up more. But for the past, since COVID, it's been challenged. It's been a challenged industry. So therefore, the appetite for acquisition is just less, unless something was the absolute perfect deal. Now we're getting to the point where, all right, this year could be the year where it's good for us to go ahead and start expanding again.
And why do you think things have been slow the last 2 years? Was it because everybody who wanted some kind of an RV got it sort of during those COVID years, and so now there's just sort of this natural tail off?
Well, Anthony, the RV is a large ticket discretionary purchase. So when there's uncertainty in the economic environment, that results in lower sales in the RV industry, number one. Number two, you're right. I think we did pull forward some of the business because people that were thinking about an RV were quick to pull the trigger during COVID. There were no options. There's no other vacation options. The whole world is kind of locked down, but you can go with an RV and you can go out in the forest someplace and have a great time, be by yourself, not have to worry about the pandemic at all. And then the other thing is that we watch in our business is consumer confidence. That's the number one business metric that I have always paid attention to. And as you know, it's been quite low the last few years. It's starting to tick up now. We're higher than we've been in, I believe, a year and a half. Yeah. The RV industry is expecting that 2025 is our turnaround year. It'll turn positive.
Fingers crossed, huh?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So obviously you weren't one of the founders of the larger Campers NRV family, but I understand there's kind of an interesting origin story where the founders had a negative RV buying experience of their own. Can you relay that story for us?
Yes, that's one of the reasons they got in business. I never knew the original founders of the company before I became, in a business sort of mastermind group that I had mentioned. with the owner of the company. His parents had already passed away, so I didn't know them. But yes, what happened is they had a pop-up trailer and they went in for some service, had a very, very bad experience, and it kind of motivated them to maybe we should get in this business ourselves. And they did. And that's how they started. They started with pop-up trailers. They bought a few pop-up trailers, put them in their yard and was selling them. That became successful. And then they just expanded and it became a real business for them.
Tell me about the core values of the company and why they're so important to you.
Yeah, the core values in our company are integrity, teamwork, continuous improvement, and sustainability. It's interesting because when we sold the company, the core values, and I never knew what their core values were. That's not part of the conversations that we have in our mastermind group. But it turned out that their core values were almost identical to ours, our mission statement. So the companies from the beginning were very much aligned, just our thought process and our beliefs were very much aligned with one another. Those core values, though, it's not just something that we printed once and put it up on a wall. It is something that is used on a continuous basis here at the dealership. It's even used if we're having some sort of a challenge with somebody on the team that requires a corrective conversation. We tie that back into the core values. Which of those core values are we in conflict with in this particular situation? And the other thing about the core values, when I was selling my company, there are publicly traded RV groups and private equity RV groups. I could have gone that direction. And the people on my team, the CPA that we hired and so forth, they kind of counseled me that the selling price would be higher if I would have gone that direction. But one of the challenges is our North Star is do the right thing. If you're a publicly traded company, the North Star is a return to shareholders, which is good. It should be that way. If I'm going to buy stock in Ford Motor Company, I want a return on my investment. So they're not doing anything wrong. They're doing it exactly as they should. It's just different. It's a different dynamic than a privately held company, where the first thing that we do is we just have to do the right thing with our customers and our business partners. And then I also believe that it's a longer-term vision. We thought about joining a roll-up at one time and going public. And with a longer-term vision, when you're privately held, you do have that long-term vision rather than, we've got this quarter, for example, and everything is not driven by the quarter. It's driven by the longer vision.
Is there maybe an example of a recent initiative that kind of highlights one or more of those core values?
Gosh, give me a couple of minutes to think of that.
Maybe I'll even pick like one specific one. Talk to me about how sustainability shows up in a regular basis in your business. What does that core value mean to you?
It is. Now, that is sustainability of the company that we're talking about. We're not talking about green initiatives there, although we believe in that as well. The sustainability of the company. So the idea there is what is best for the whole company is what is best for all of us. We're all in this together. What is a company? It's a group of people getting together for a common purpose. So we have to do what's best for the company, and that has to take precedence over what's best for an individual. In most cases, those two things align. It's win-win. Not in every case, though.
You guys are known for a no-pressure sales approach. Explain, first of all, why, and then maybe if you've got a story or an anecdote you can share about, a moment where that philosophy really resulted in a very positive customer experience.
Okay. So with salespeople here at the dealership, what I try to communicate to them is our job is to help people get what they want. I don't care if you are the greatest salesperson in the world. If the customer doesn't want it, they're not going to buy it. certainly not an RV. We're not talking about, some low-cost item. It's a high-cost item that is a discretionary purchase. So our job is to help people get what they want. It's funny. It was many years ago, but I had somebody many years ago as a newly hired salesperson come out of the auto industry, and I hear him talking to another person on the team, and he said that he laid them away. I was so appalled. I was so shocked with that. And I said, we don't lay anybody away. That's not what we're here for. It's one of the reasons we have the posted price with a discount right on that. You don't have to negotiate. You can pay.
What does that term even mean? I can tell by the way that you're speaking about it that it's not positive, but what does that even mean?
Well, he was talking in terms of, and I think that he was talking in terms of the company that he had worked at previously, where the point of pride is getting the deal, even if it does not serve the customer.
Oh, geez. Okay. Right. Clearly did not align with any of your core values.
That's right. It didn't align with our core values. Our job is to help people get what they want, find what they want, and then help find an RV that fits that. And it's not just their wants and needs in the RV, but it's the budget also. For one of the things that we talked about is if the customer really likes this one and they really like this one, and this one costs $5,000, if you can steer them in one direction or another, steer them to the less expensive one. It'll be easier for them to buy that one. And if they like it equally as much as the more expensive one, then they're better served.
So I'm curious, maybe use that particular story as an example for how when you see your core values not being demonstrated from your team, how do you approach that from kind of a learning opportunity or a teaching opportunity?
Well, one of the most hard conversations are one of the most challenging things for management in businesses. I'm sure you see it in your own business, Anthony. And as managers, we just have to have the courage to have difficult conversations, face them head on. And what I always would want to start a conversation is trying to understand, their point of view. One of the 7 habits of highly effective people, if you know that book, is seek first to understand. So we want to start there, seek first to understand, and then try to change their thinking if that's what's necessary. So we try to change their thinking, and then, basically you let somebody know what's required to stay on the team, and if they choose to do it or not do it, it's their choice.
I'm curious about that one particular salesperson who laid that customer away. Was that somebody that you were able to kind of coach and train, or was that somebody that eventually found themselves employment elsewhere?
Well, I probably handled that situation wrong because I coached and trained immediately in front of all the other people with my reaction to the statement. But that's good. You want everybody to know that that's not acceptable. He was short-term with the company, and it's the only time that I can ever remember that. It's a very unusual situation. It's just you had asked for some sort of example or demonstration of how the values work in the dealership.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear. This is a question I like to ask all my guests about, in most industries, I still hear it's a pretty tight labor market. You're talking about that particular individual was a rather unusual, kind of an outlier of an experience. But in general, finding and then holding on to good people can be really challenging. I'm curious to hear about some things that you've tried and found success with, both from a recruiting and a retention standpoint.
Well, recruiting, you have 2 kinds of recruiting. One is if there's somebody in the industry and they're looking for something and you have the reputation that we're fortunate enough to have in our industry, they might come to us. But aside from that, outside of the industry recruiting, when I'm interviewing people, basically I'm only looking for 2 things. I only want to know if they're going to be a culture fit and if they can deliver the results that we need. We start before we even go down mentally that path is trying to identify if the person is more optimistic or pessimistic. because we have found that if we get somebody who's negative in the organization, it can be a tremendous drain on the other team members. And it can kind of bring everybody down. Because if you look at any particular situation, there's going to be something negative about that situation, and there's going to be something positive about that situation. And it's our individual choice. We all have free will. Which one do we want to pay attention to? So we're looking for the people that just naturally pay attention to the positive side of whatever the situation may be. For example, I'll give you an example. When we first went into COVID, we had to have a lockdown. Everything has to shut down. And I'm in Arizona, so for us that happened about 6 weeks. We never did shut down because we are an essential business, so our hours didn't change at all. We maintained just our normal operating hours, but there were no customers. The state's completely shut down, locked down. There's no customers. What there was a tremendous demand for was toilet paper. As we all know, it became kind of a joke, right? This run on toilet paper. Even here in our own parks department, we had to start limiting it because one person would come in and buy everything off the shelf. And then the people that really needed it, we didn't have it for them. So we had to start limiting that. So our little joke at the dealership is soon RVs will be like toilet paper. Everybody will want it and there won't be enough to go around.
Boy, were you right.
Yeah, we didn't know how right we were. It was just kind of a little joke, But even when there's no customers, we weren't sitting around saying, oh, what are we going to do? This is doom and gloom. This is so bad. We're making jokes and talking about how the future is going to be positive.
And so, but that's a really hard time and place to be finding your optimistic part of your soul, because things are shut down. There's no customers for weeks. Nobody knew when the world in general might get back to normal, or for you more specifically, when people might start buying RVs again. I mean, was there still something sort of nagging in the back of your mind that said, I'm going to put on a happy face at work, but I don't know where this is going, and at some point we may need to shut our doors?
Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. And as I mentioned, I had several family members working here too. So and all of their families are dependent on this little business. So it is a weight. It's a mental weight. And we did not lay off anyone or furlough anyone, which is also very unusual during that time. I was just hoping that it would turn around quick enough where we wouldn't have to. And as it turns out, it did. We were very fortunate that we did not lay off anyone and furlough anyone like everybody else was doing, because when it came back fast. And we really needed the people that we had. So that part really did benefit us. But it was painful, very painful for, 2 or 3 months there. And I didn't have a solution to that. That was very worrying. And to your point, I never expressed my worry, to the team here. We just have to be the beacon of light and be optimistic and hope that it passes. And it did.
Yeah, for those listening who haven't been responsible for other people's paychecks before, there's a lot of stress just thinking about your own paycheck. Hey, am I going to be able to make ends meet? Can I pay this bill? Can I pay that bill? How do I manage this? You can relate. Everybody can relate to that kind of stress, but the stress of having to think about, are all these people and their families who rely on this business and me to be able to sign their paychecks every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, are they going to be able to afford to live if I've got to shut this tap off? Like if everything has to close down, that is a weight that is hard to put into words. So for everybody listening, you haven't been in that boat, go give your employer, the owner there, a high five and thank them, because they carry that weight oftentimes, as Debbie's pointing out, in silence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what were some of the, since you weren't really talking about it, you weren't voicing that to your team members, what were some coping mechanisms for you during that time?
For me, the coping mechanism is always make a plan. And the most stressful times for me is if it feels like something is out of my control. So, for example, the economy could be a bad economy. That's true. So we have to make a plan. How do we adjust to that? How do we adapt to that? One of my favorite quotes is, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor is it the most intelligent of the species. It's the most adaptable that survive. So one of the mantras that we have in this business when things are a little tough is, it's not tough just for us. It'll be tough for our competitors. It'll be tough for everybody. All we have to do is be better and quicker and adapting to the new reality than our competitors, and we win. So the way that I help cope with things like that is make a plan and start implementing the plan.
So
doesn't mean stress goes away.
What was the plan in that first 2 or 3 months there where things were really slow and you weren't sure what was going to happen?
Well, in the first 2 or 3 months, we really didn't have a plan other than try to keep the team together, try to keep everybody's spirits up, because the faucet would just shut off. But we knew that that wasn't permanent. We knew that business would return, so we didn't feel like we had to make a plan. Now, if you felt like this could last for, say, a year, then you would have to start making those cuts and adjustments right away. We just didn't feel it. We felt it was temporary, and so we could write it out.
So you said that one of the first things that you look at when considering hiring somebody is, are you optimistic or are you pessimistic? Are there particular questions in your interview process that help to kind of bring that personality trait to the surface?
Yes. Is it always effective? No. But yes, there are things. For example, I want to find out why a person would leave previous employers. Because one of the things that I have learned is if their previous employer was a jerk and the one before that was a jerk, we're going to be a jerk also. So that's one of the things that we look for. Another thing, to even get an interview, we really look. I don't view it favorably for job hoppers. If you can't keep a job more than a couple of years, even though it's your choice, maybe it's your choice to keep moving on, I really have to question why. If it's a person recently out of school, okay, I get it. You're trying to find a way. You're trying to find something that kind of sticks with you. But other than that, I feel like either you're a quitter, and I don't want people who are quitters. I want people when things get tough, you dig in, you have some grit, you figure it out and find a way, or it's people that are asked to leave on a frequent basis. So neither one of those are people that I want on the team.
Understandable. I'm curious, Debbie, if there are maybe certain things that are specific to different geographical locations as it pertains to the RV industry. Like, are there certain things that you see in the Arizona market that are different than what, maybe the founders of Campers NRV see in some of their eastern locations that influences how you have to prepare the business or train people to handle customers?
There are differences. There's more similarities than there are differences. One of the things that I learned for years and being in this mastermind group is called a 20 group is that there's more than one way of success, because you had business owners in there that one business owner would do something this way and another one would do it this way. Another one did it the third way. And all of those could be successful. It was usually in the implementation as much as the idea or philosophy in and of itself. So there are regional differences, and every area just has its own vibe, not only parts of the country, but individual stores. And you can be a store that is very successful doing X and another store is very successful doing Y, and that's okay, as long as you implement it well and you're following the core values. There definitely are more similarities than differences. One of the differences we see, though, are in floor plans. You might have areas where the normal camping is in a park where you have full facilities and hookups, and you have areas where a lot of the camping here in Arizona, for example, is what we call dry camping. So you can just go off on some logging road and be out in the forest by yourself. You don't have any kind of hookups. the RV is self-contained, so you can do that. You can do dry camping, but those things definitely have differences.
So
and floor plans as
that
well.
dry camping is more common in Arizona than other parts of the country?
Yes, I think it's more common anywhere where you have that access. And we have a lot of that access here in Arizona. There's a tremendous amount of the state that's owned by the government. It's not public land. And you can just go off and anywhere you can get your RV is where you can stay.
You, Debbie, emphasize enriching customers' lives by helping them find their away. Is there a particular customer success story that illustrates the impact that Campers NRV can have on someone's RV journey?
Oh, Anthony, there are so many. There are so many stories. I'll tell you, it's one of the things that I absolutely love about this business. I don't think I'd be in the business if it were the automobile business, because nobody needs an RV to go to work tomorrow. You buy an RV because you want to have fun. You want to go out and live your life and have that adventure. And the RVs bring freedom, adventure, family togetherness, bonding. You can explore the wilderness, get out there in nature. It's healthy. And it's just, I love it with kids especially. Because if you can get your young kids out in nature, that is so valuable for them and the whole family bonding. And we see that on a regular basis where people come in and they're just so excited. And then sometimes we'll get photographs or they'll come in for service and tell us stories about it. It's just really great. I had one customer a few years ago, and it was an elderly customer, and they came in, and it was kind of a sad story. They were buying the RV because the wife had been diagnosed with cancer, and she only had a couple of years to live. So they thought, if we only have 2 years, we're going to get out there and see as much of America as we can and go explore and have fun. And they bought an RV. And then the man came back, I don't know, a few years, maybe 6 years later, and was wanting to trade it in for a new RV. He was remarried to another woman and, wanted to start that adventure all over again, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, those are some fun stories.
The best is I thought, you find out you only have a couple of years to live. Well, instead of staying home and just being preoccupied with that and being so miserable all the time, they decided to buy an RV and go have some fun.
Well, it sounds like the kind of person you'd want working for you. There's that level of optimism, when you're facing down, the worst time that you could imagine. We're going to get out there and make the best of what time we have left. There's an optimism gene in that person.
That's right. Yeah, they were an inspiration to me for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious, Debbie, if your education at was it Arizona State?
Yes.
Yeah, if your education at Arizona State has influenced your leadership model at all.
Well, I would say no to that. And the reasons, I never graduated Arizona State University, and it was never my intention to anyway. The courses I took, I went through a course called Advanced Business Administration. There was another one as well, but I was there for the skill set. I wasn't there for the degree, and it just wasn't that prevalent in my family. I grew up, my parents were entrepreneurs and starting businesses, and it just wasn't top of mind awareness for me. So I wanted to participate in programs that gave me a skill set. There were many programs not many, but there are a few programs within the RV industry specifically, and specific business programs that I attended. I was a sponge in trying to learn as much as I can, and those benefited me much more, in my opinion, than even the Advanced Business Administration and the ASU. So although I'm an advocate of that, all of my kids have advanced degrees. I believe in it. My own personal journey, that was not a big part of it. Outside the university education courses that I took were more influential than that of ASU.
So we've already talked about how COVID has kind of paused the growth plans for the moment. But once things pick up in the RV industry again, what do you foresee the growth being like?
Well, that is our intention, is to continue to grow. and especially out here in the West, grow our footprint because we don't have much of Arizona is the only one in the West. So we do want to grow that, and we'll do it the same way that it's been done in the past. We have certain key things and a current specific size of business that we look for, and there are specific things in the businesses that we look for that kind of fit our model. So, for example, our particular business model, if you have what we call in the industry a Plateau 1 business, which means a Plateau 1, that's how we started out. That's how it was when I started the company. It's a very, very small operation that is only run by, 5 or 6 people run the whole dealership. And that is not really a good fit for the organization that we have now at this point. So those are the kinds of businesses that we would be least interested in compared to the larger.
The growth plans are all about acquisitions then, not starting up a new location.
Oh, no, we do internal also. If there's a good location, we'll buy a piece of ground and we'll build a dealership up new. That's how all the ones in Arizona were done. Just buy a piece of ground and build the dealership from there because it's in the right location and everything's right. So we do both. That's called greenfield. We do both greenfield expansion and acquisitions.
Outside of acquiring locations, building new ones, are there any thoughts to expand into any new products or services that you're not currently offering?
The RV industry is always evolving. One of the great things about the RV industry is they are very quick to pivot and to adapt to the consumer demand and what the consumers want. Even during COVID, for example, the RV industry adapted very quicker than the marine industry, quicker than power sports or motorcycle, quicker than all the other outdoor leisure activities. So we do a good job of that, and that happens on a regular basis. As far as expanding beyond the RV industry, that is not something that we're pursuing right at this time.
Any other kinds of internal innovations that you guys are looking at?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question. There's something in the RV industry where they recognize the top 50 dealers in all of the USA and Canada. So, you're choosing from, probably 2,000, 2,500 dealerships, and you're picking the top 50. Well, in addition to that, which we have won that award pretty much every year since they started doing it, but they do have another one that's even one of the 50 that's at a higher level called the Innovation Award. And this past November at the annual RVDA conference, we were awarded the Innovation Award.
Oh.
And the reason, I'll share with you why. So, that is one of our goals, is to be a positive disruptor and really being on the front end of that innovation. You know how you have online chat? And one of our challenges with online chat is because a lot of it occurs outside of business operating hours. It might be at 2:00 in the morning, it might be 4:00 in the morning, and we're just not chatting with those people at all. They might type in something, but nobody's going to see that message until we open it the next day. So we've gone to an AI agent. Her name is Fran. And now, Fran, if you're on our website and you're doing chat, hopefully she feels like a human being to you, but it's not. It's all artificial intelligence. And our big driver of doing that is, as I mentioned, so that we could be there for customers whenever they had a question, rather than only during operating hours.
Has it been in place long enough where you can identify any particular success metrics, like, converted more website visitors to customers, or, fewer, shorter response times, or anything like that?
Well, we definitely have shorter response times because that AI agent is on there and the response is immediate. You don't have to wait for somebody to respond to you. So we definitely have that. As far as the success metric, no, it's new for us. And our success actually went down, but that might be because that's where you have to start, and then you build from that. So we do have high expectations for it, but it's too early to measure the success right now, other than response time. I'm talking about the success of actual sales.
So it could be that the number of conversions to sales has gone down because the AI still needs some tweaking. It needs to learn. It needs to be trained. It needs new prompts. It needs to do a better job of interacting with people. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be helpful long term. It's just these are early days and you're still kind of learning your way through that. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly accurate. And you do have to train it. We were training it before we went live with it, but then when you go live, you see that there's more training needed.
Yeah. As business owners, as business leaders, Debbie, we're lots of things we've got to keep our eye on. One of the biggest ones, obviously, is the bottom line, the profit and loss. And, myself, I kind of think about it. There are these two big levers that you can pull, right? You can pull one to increase sales. You can, pull another one to decrease expenses. I'm curious, across your long business career, are there any creative things that you've tried and found success with in pulling either one of those levers?
Yeah, you're exactly right. In times of a decreasing business environment, we're pulling hard on that expense control. And in times of increasing business, we're not paying as much attention to the expense control. You're pulling hard on that increased sales. And it's always a balance between the two. And that's what makes a company sustainable or not sustainable. It's just being able to manipulate that. During the early days of COVID, so as I mentioned, we did not lay anyone off or furlough anyone. We didn't raise our prices. What we did do, though, and we did this immediately, is we went to all of our business partners and asked for either, for example, uniforms. Went to the uniform vendor and said, we would like 2 months of free uniforms. We still want the delivery service, but we don't want to pay for it for 2 months. We think that we'll get past this. We went to every single provider that we had and asked them to either let us pay it later or just eliminate it for a short period of time. And that was very successful. Most businesses did it, like the uniform company. They said, okay, you get it.
So these were businesses that must have been doing okay themselves during this challenging time to be able to kind of float you that money?
Well, that was up to each individual business. They could either say, hey, we don't have it either. We can't do that. And I understand. Or they could say, yeah, you've been a good business partner all these years and we can do that. We can forego the bill for 2 months or a month or whatever it is.
That's tremendous. I mean, that speaks volumes to the relationships that you've built up with those folks over the years.
We even did that, by the way, with banks on our mortgages. Now, that wasn't a forgiveness. It was added back onto the principal. You're tacking it back in. But even the banks did that for us. Now, mortgages.
Yeah. Again, speaks volumes to relationships and the importance of them. Any specific mentors, books, or other experiences that have been particularly helpful to you in your trajectory?
Yes. When I was young, he's not around anymore, but when I was young, my dad sent me to all these courses with Zig Ziglar. And I read all the books, and I went through all the courses. I went through so many of them, all different kinds of people. But that's the one, especially at the young age, that made the biggest difference to me. Little principles that I use to this day. For example, it used to be, because I was young and single and went out a lot, so it used to be the alarm clock would go off. And I would hate waking up in the morning, especially if I hadn't had much sleep the night before. I would hate waking up in the morning. I hated that alarm clock. And one of the things that Zig Ziglar said is you've got to train your brain on the alarm clock. And don't even think of it as an alarm. Think of it as an opportunity clock. And when it goes off in the morning, force yourself to think something positive. I still do that today. Even if you're sleepy or, you went to bed late for whatever reason, you still wake up with a positive thought. Okay, good. Yeah, I feel great. I had enough sleep. It's going to be a good day. Those types of things.
What was the positive thing you told yourself this morning? Do you remember?
It was the sleep. Hey, I had a great night's sleep. I feel good. I mean, that's kind of a normal one. But yeah, always something positive.
Okay, shifting gears on you now, Debbie, for just a moment. Curious to hear about a particular challenge that you've gone through. Either something personal or professional. How you got through that, lessons learned coming out the other side.
Well, Challenges in business, the Great Recession was a big one in the RV industry. There was, I believe it's 1/3 of all the manufacturers went out of business.
Wow.
About a quarter of all the dealers, 20 or 25, completely out of business. It was really quite devastating. So for so many businesses, so that was challenging, and we had to get through it. And one of the things that put the dealers out of business, interestingly enough, was, we had bank loans to buy our inventory. It's called floor plans, but we had bank loans to buy the inventory. All of those loans are demand notes. And during the Great Recession, we had not a lot, but we had a couple of big lenders completely pull out. And the dealers were not able to get lines of credit with other lenders. And so many of them just had to close the doors and go out of business. And that's what put a lot of the dealers out of business. So anyway, that was a challenging time. In fact, our own particular lender, I won't mention which one, we had 1 month where we turned in a profit and loss statement that was a negative. We lost money that month. And even our rep was telling the bank, but it's December. Most of the RV industry loses money in December. It's just a soft month. That doesn't mean anything. So they said no, and they cut our line of credit from, even though it's a demand note, they still give you a commitment for a year is the normal. They cut it back to 6 months. So we thought, okay, well, what can we do so that we never turn in a P&L statement with a loss on it? And we knew that many of the expenses are things that we control. For example, we control my salary. We can control the rents because we own the properties and we charge rent on them. And so we just started, I went for a year without a salary. Now, when business turned around, I collected it back. I didn't mean that to be a forever gift. That's one of the things that I did. I went for a year without salary. So that was a little bit stressful, but we were able to get through it. We made the plans. The things that stress me out the most are things that I don't feel like I have control over. There's something that I could do to improve the situation, or I'm thinking, what should I do? What can I do? Those types of things.
So when faced with something like that, how do you get through those moments, those times when something is really difficult and you don't feel like there's anything that you can do to control the situation? Because I hear it like you're a big planner. Like, hey, we got the Great Recession and we showed 1 month of loss. And so, how can we not do that again? You're like, well, let's think creatively. And you came up with some things that you can control. And there are some things in life that you can't control. How do you cope with things like that?
In business, I try to do it personally also, but in business, we often talk about IMC and BMC. IMC being in my control and BMC being beyond my control. Because oftentimes we get so stressed out about things that are beyond our control and things that are not even personal. It's not like my sister. It's the weather. It's the traffic. It's the, the occasional irrational customer or whatever it may be. And we get all worked up about things that are beyond our control. So what we try to tell everybody, put it out of your mind. As BMC, just get over it. Try to get it out of your mind. Focus on things that are within your control. Those things are stressful too, but oftentimes there's something you can do about it. You might not be able to solve the problem, but there is some impact you can make and some difference that you can make on all of those things. And that's why I said, things that I do care about that are beyond my control might be some of the most stressful, like the one that I shared with you. Or if you have a family member that gets a severe illness. I had a brother in the hospital earlier this year. We didn't know if he would be able to make it or not. And those things are, he pulled through, thankfully. Those are the kinds of things that are really stressful. But on things that are beyond my control, even with my sister, I tried to not think about it as much as I could. I told my mom, don't answer your phone. Just don't answer the phone.
Out of sight, out of mind sometimes, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do what you can. Debbie, I just have one more question for you, but before I ask it, I want to do two things. For everyone listening today, I know that you love today's content. Debbie's been great. So please hit the like, share, subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. I also want to let people know the best way to get in touch with you, which is your email address. D Brunaforte. So DBRUNOFORTE at campersn.com. We'll also have that in the show notes. And then the last question that I have for you, Debbie, is how do you see the industry evolving in the next couple of years? What do you see the big changes are that are coming?
Well, the industry, we do expect 2025 to be kind of a turnaround year for the RV industry. We're starting to see it already. People seem to be more optimistic. They want to get out there. They want to get out in nature and have that freedom to do it in their own vehicle, in their own RV. I'll tell you, Anthony, one of the things that we look longer into the future that I'm very excited about is the atomic, am I saying the right word?
Autonomous?
No. Autonomous, yes, thank you. Autonomous driving. Can you imagine if you have an RV, if you're towing a fifth-wheeler travel trailer or driving in a motorhome? Let's say you're driving in a motorhome and you'd like to have a sandwich. Well, you could just keep the motorhome going. You wash that, make yourself a little sandwich. Maybe you watch a little bit of the game on TV, and the motorhome just keeps on going. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be a blast.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Now, you hear a lot about that, obviously, in automobiles. You hear about it in commercial delivery vehicles, that it's being worked on, taxis. I'm not in the space, but I haven't seen any articles about it coming to the motorized RV space. Is there conversations? Are there people working on this actively?
Yes. One of the challenges is the cost. And then, of course, we need more technology improvements to get the range. And it's the same challenges as what you have in the automobile space, but it's coming. There are people working on it. And I just think that would be so exciting for our industry.
Yeah. Are there any motorized RVs now that have like a less advanced version of that? Like, I don't know, if you start drifting out of your lane, like it turns the wheel back for you? Like, does any of that exist presently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Some of that does. So, it's not just Tesla that's doing that these days. Ford, GM, and they make the chassis. So, yeah.
So that same tech that's being worked on in the auto industry is getting passed into the RV space as well. Makes a lot of sense.
And there are manufacturers that are working on battery-powered only RVs, so that's a little bit different than the auto driving segment that I was talking about, but oftentimes those will come together. So it's not mainstream. If you go buy a motorhome right now, it's not going to buy. You would have to really, if you want a battery-powered motorhome, for example, you could do it, but it would be very expensive, and I'm not sure how dependable. So it's not really integrated in our industry yet, but it's coming. People are working on that.
One of the fun things to look forward to. Yeah. All right. Well, Debbie, I want to be the first one to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure, Anthony. Thank you so much.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.